Okay. Hello, welcome to Swimway Africa YouTube series. My name is Wonne Afronelly. I am from Nigeria, and I'll be your host today. You may have heard about the Nile Basin. It's quite a large one, about the largest, maybe. But joining us today to tell us about the Nile Basin and its importance to migratory fish within African regions is an environmentalist and someone who has been in the front line working, preserving wetlands, and he's been also working with the Ecological Society for Eastern Africa, as well as the Lake Victoria region local authorities and Trade Initiative, Eco Finder Kenya. And he's done so much with the Nile Basin. Um, of course, he's well trained with different degrees. I must say, he is versatile. He holds a BSc in Natural Resources Management from Egerton University, Kenya, and an MSc in Environmental Science, Policy, and Management from University of Manchester, UK. For joining me, welcome with me, Mr. Leonard Akwany. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Wonne.
It's good to have you here. We're honored to that you could make our time to join us on this episode. We hope to learn so much from you. So, starting off, could you tell us a little bit about the Nile River?
Thank you so much, Wonne, once again, and thank you for having me. Yes, Nile Basin is a river coming from East Africa and finding its way to South Sudan, and then to Sudan, and then to Egypt. And that is the part that comes from East Africa, more so Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda. This is the part that is called the White Nile. And then there is the Blue Nile. There is the Blue Nile, which comes from the highlands of Ethiopia, finding its way down to Sudan, and then finally to Egypt, and then finally to Mediterranean Sea.
Ah,
So the Nile then flows. The Nile Basin covers 10 countries, with the Burundi being at upstream, the farthest upstream, and Egypt being at the lowest downstream. So this is 10 countries, and therefore Nile Basin is an intergovernmental organization that brings these 10 countries, and they are working together, collaborating towards the sustainable utilization and conservation of the River Nile. Uh, River Nile, yes.
10 countries.
Yes,
10
10
is a
countries.
huge one. I hear it's the longest river. Would that be correct?
Yes, River Nile is the longest river in the world. Yes,
In
that
the
is very,
world, not in Africa.
not in the
Wow.
world. Yes,
That's interesting to know. Africa has something.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So all 10 countries that the river passes through, are they all African countries?
Yes, all of them are African countries. From East
Okay.
Africa, we have Burundi and Rwanda, as you go down to Ethiopia, South Sudan, and finally to Egypt. So all of them are countries in the continent of Africa. Yeah.
So we can say that a huge percentage of each of these 10 countries depend on the Nile River resources.
Exactly.
Do you have an
This
estimated number of people in these 10 countries that depend on the Nile River?
The people who depend on this Nile River are over 250 million people.
Wow. That's a huge percentage of the world.
Yes,
250. Wow.
yes,
That's interesting.
250. And the number is growing. The number is growing. The projection is almost to the tune of 450 million come 2050. Yeah. So the number is growing, the population is growing dramatically.
Okay. So tell us about the Nile Basin Initiative. Why was it set up? What do you intend to achieve with the initiative?
Yes, with this kind of river shared by many countries, 10 of them, there is need for coordinated effort to conserve the river so that
Okay.
each and every country, each and every party can play its role towards the sustainability of the river. And this can only
Okay.
be when these countries come together, they share space, they talk to each other, they plan together, and they work together towards the sustainability of the river. So then the Nile Basin Initiative was formed with that in mind to bring these countries together so that they can enhance socioeconomic development of these 10 countries through sustainable utilization of the River Nile water resources or the River Nile natural resources. So the
Interesting.
coming up of these countries is the Nile Basin provides a platform, an intergovernmental platform for the countries to work together towards sustainable utilization of the Nile River.
Interesting. So that's a bit of coordination there for 10 countries. So if we know that 250 million people counting depend on the Nile River resources, could you tell the viewer what water resource is and water resource management so that we have a proper understanding of the importance of this particular initiative?
Yes, so within the water resource management, it's all about generating information about the status of the river. For
Okay.
instance, what are the issues in relation to the water balance of the river? What are some of the river flow focusing issues? What are some of the wetlands of the river? What are some of the catchment areas that are water towers of the river? So water management is all about generating this information to inform river planning and development. And with
Oh,
regards to
right.
water development, then this is coming up with infrastructures, coming up with the plans and coming up with investment projects to tap on the resources of the river. So in this regard, you can find that some of the investments are related towards restoration or sound management of the catchment areas so that water can continue flowing into the river. Some of those investments also involves hydropower, joint hydropower projects. Some also involves joint water for irrigation kind of projects. So this is what the water development part does within the Nile Basin Initiative.
Interesting. Okay, so if water resource management is about the status of water and the available resources, of course, how these 10 countries can benefit, what then is fisheries resource? Would it be the same as water resource?
Pardon, I didn't get that question clearly.
Okay,
Please
I'm
repeat.
saying, what is fisheries resource? Can we otherwise refer to it as water resource
Oh, yes. There is water resource.
that you already explained?
This is purely water in terms of quantity and quality. So these are the water resources of the Nile Basin. Then, of course, Nile Basin also has fishery resources, and one of
Okay.
a great source from the fishery is the fish. And because Nile River is also part of Lake Victoria, so there is both lake-based kind of fish and the riverine-based kind of fish, and of course also other fishery resources that the Nile countries tap from the river and also from the lakes that are associated with the river. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, that's very understandable because, of course, in the water we have both flora and fauna, and fish is a kind of fauna. So, yes, it means that water resources are everything that has to do with the water body, while the fisheries is just fish. Right. So out of the 250 million plus people who depend on the Nile River, do you have an estimated number of people who depend on the fisheries resources and fish in the Nile River as a source of livelihood?
Um, of course, many people depend on fisheries for livelihoods. If
Okay.
we take, if we take, for instance, Lake Victoria itself, which is an integral component of River Nile, you'll find over 3 million people depends on this river, on its fisheries resources. That is just Lake Victoria. So if you look at the entire River Nile basin, then you will find over 15% of this population depends on this river, depends on its fishery resources. So it's
Mm-hmm.
quite a reasonable number that depends on its fishery resources, right from Lake Victoria into the river, with many lakes that are associated as you go down the south, as you go down the north to the Egypt. So there are many people who depends on the fishery resources for livelihoods. So there are many people within the value chain, people who are doing the fishing, people who are selling, people who are processing, and many other aspects of the fisheries value chain. There's quite a
15,
number of
yes,
people.
15% of 250 million is quite huge. That's over 30 million people
Yes.
who depend on the fish. With over 2 million people who depend on the Nile River as a source of livelihood, either the water resources or about 30 million, at least 30 million who depend on the fish as a source of livelihood as well, fisheries resource. It is very important for us to learn more about this particular river. So, Mr. Leonard, could you tell us a little bit about fish migration challenges for the while you have been with the Nile Basin Initiative? What are the challenges you have faced concerning fish migration for migratory fish?
Yes, fisheries or fish is a very key issue in the River Nile, having in mind that this is the longest river in the world, about 7,000 kilometers long,
Ah,
uh, sitting in an area, covering an area of about 3.2 million. So it's a very
oh,
huge, gigantic river.
mm,
Now, and of course, this river is associated with lakes and is associated with tributaries, rivers coming in and joining this. So, and each country has got their plans. They want to tap on the water resources of the lake. So you'll find
okay,
most of these countries are tapping on the lake through water infrastructure, for irrigation, for hydropower, and then in this regard, creating barriers for fish, also for fish migration, which is very key because some fish breeds in the river and then spends their life in the lakes, or breeds in the lakes and spends their entire life in the river. Or some of them spawns in the rivers and then starts their journey. So fish migration is a very important life aspect of this fish. It keeps them healthy, it helps them to get food, it helps them to get
okay,
away from predators, it helps them to get the right temperature or to feed. And therefore, the major challenge here is the water related infrastructure that are popping up in the entire basin, aimed for
okay,
irrigation and power. For barriers, these then offer
okay,
barriers to fish migration. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, the barriers for irrigation, for access to water resources by the different countries cause a major challenge, I suppose.
Yes, this is the
Okay,
major
so
challenge. Yes.
um, because there are 10 countries, we definitely would have transboundary, activities by these officials in different countries. So what is the transboundary collaboration that you're working with to ensure that each of these countries benefits commensurately as a part of the Nile River?
Yes, there are a lot of things that are being done to
Okay.
ensure fish migration. One is that these infrastructures are informed by critical environmental and social safeguards. So
Okay.
these structures, when they are being designed, issues of environmental safeguards, issues of ecological safeguards, and also issue of social safeguards are part and parcel of the design, and they go through stakeholders consultation so that those designs uh, caters for issues like fish migration and others. Of course, this is not adequate, but this is one aspect in terms of ensuring that there's
Okay.
environmental and social safeguards. The other
Okay.
issue is within the Nile River Basin. There is a lot of studies geared towards water allocation, and water
Okay.
allocation is with regard to environmental flows. These are environmental
Okay.
flows, water that we leave to sustain ecosystems, to sustain biodiversity that's there. So a lot of research within the water management and
Okay.
within the environment done to avail information on environmental flows, the required environmental flows, quantity and quality and timing. So this information is availed to help in ensuring that the water keeps flowing, the water keeps remaining in the river to help in fish migration, but also to sustain aquatic ecosystems and biodiversity, and even associated culture of these aquatic ecosystems. So these are two
Okay.
key issues that we are doing from the Nile Basin Initiative.
All right, interesting. So the Nile Basin Initiative, I think you just highlighted some guidelines for work. Can these same guidelines be used in different regions apart from the Nile?
Of course, Nile Basin have got policies and guidelines which ensures environmental sustainability, fishery resources being part of that. So these guidelines are developed, co-created collectively with the 10 countries, and these
Okay.
guidelines are for use by these 10 countries. And of course, also these guidelines can be shared with other river basin organizations so that they
Mhm.
can learn from, not really to copy paste, but because contexts are different, and therefore they can be inspired by these guidelines to develop the
Could you
ones which are
could you could you
appropriate.
highlight two of these guidelines, please? Can we know two of them?
For instance, we have environmental flows technical manual. This is all
Okay.
about how you measure issues of environmental flows and how you ensure that through a stakeholder process, these environmental flows then becomes part and parcel of water resource management and ensures
Mhm.
that there is water allocation towards ecosystems, towards biodiversity, and towards the associated culture of those aquatic ecosystems. So this environmental flows technical manual is available. It's open source manual, and countries can
Okay.
tap on it with regards to water allocation, especially the component of environmental flows.
Okay. All right, so who are the stakeholders of the Nile Basin Initiative?
Yes, the Nile Basin Initiative works with diverse stakeholders. Of course, the major
Okay.
stakeholder here is the people of the Nile. That is why we say in our mission statement it is one river, one people, one vision. So first and foremost, the major
Mm,
stakeholders, the communities, are the people of the River Nile. So we work
okay.
with, with non-state actors, and our entry point is the Ministry of Water within those 10 countries. Our entry
Countries.
point
Okay.
is the Ministry of Water within those 10 countries. But of course, we work with a lot of stakeholders. We work with women, we work with youth, we work with various organizations, we work with the universities, and of course, our entry point to those countries is the Ministry of Water.
Okay. Interesting. You do, it seems like a huge kind of work you do out there, coordinating all 10 countries and, transboundary collaborations. Very key. So, what can people do to help in terms of possible research or information? What can the viewer, the listener do to help your activities at the Now Basin Initiative?
Yes, there are many help uh, that is supposed to be secured towards the conservation
Okay.
of these green resources. One of those help, for instance, within environmental docket. For instance, the measurement of environmental flows have just
Okay.
been done at course level, rough level for the basin. So there is a lot to do with environmental flows measurement within various sub-basins of this river. So that is work
Okay.
that's done. With regards to fish migration, there is still a lack of a lot of data with regards
Mm,
to fish migration. Which species are migrating? What is their migratory routes? How do they migrate seasonally? So this kind of information with regards to fish migration will be very key so that it can feed into the river basin development planning so that we know which species are involved, which seasons do they migrate, what do they migrate for, which conditions are they migrating, so that those can be upheld within the river basin planning and development. So within fish
wow.
migration, there's a gap in terms of data to inform decision and
Mm.
many other areas.
Wow, you're doing so much, and apparently you need more people, research experts, and I think the local people too
Exactly.
could help because sometimes they understand the movement of these fishes when they migrate. They could have local terms for them, and that could also help.
Yes,
Okay, so
local people and local communities
mm.
are an integral, very important part as a very, very important. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Leonard. It's been an interesting session with you. I'm just going to let the viewer know that you can reach if you want to learn more, you can reach the Nile Basin Initiative at www.nilebasin.org. They're also on Twitter at NBI Web. That's NBIWEB. And of course, you can also watch YouTube series Now Basin Initiative or on Facebook at Now Basin Initiative. We have been interacting with Mr. Leonard Akwany. I think you're currently based in Kenya.
Yes,
Is that
yes,
correct? Okay.
yes.
Thank you so much. I've really learned a lot. Definitely check out your Facebook and your YouTube and follow through with what you're doing and also on your website. I think you have a lot of information there. And then we'll see how we can project what you do to some experts who are already working in the African regions on migratory fish so they can feed you with all of the information and research results from their work.
Thank you so much, Wonne, for having me. Thank you so much.
All right, that's how far we can go. We'll bring you new episode coming up next week. Thank you so much, Mr. Leonard. Have a good
Thank you
day.
so much.
Bye bye.